Sarah Chen checked her bank balance at 10:47 p.m. in the fluorescent glare of a Chevron station off Interstate 880 in Oakland. The number on her phone screen, 5:73. Her next paycheck would be deposited Friday morning at 6 a.m. exactly 55 hours and 13 minutes away. She had done this math 3 times tonight. The numbers never changed. She was 28 years old, 9 years in the United States, after immigrating from Taiwan at 19 with the kind of hope only teenagers carry. She had her daughter Emma now, age 6, currently asleep at Mrs. Kim's apartment 3 buildings over because Sarah worked a night shift cleaning at Highland Hospital and couldn't afford overnight childcare. Emma was supposed to be sleeping. Sarah would text Mrs. Kim in a minute to confirm the same ritual every night. The gas station was her last stop before her 11 p.m. shift. Her Honda Civic's needle touched E, making the coughing sound that meant it ran on fumes and optimism. She pumped exactly 5 W00, not 573, because the 73 cents was Emma's lunch money tomorrow, and Emma's lunch money was non-negotiable. She was replacing the nozzle when she heard the voice behind her. "Excuse me, do you have any cash? My card just got declined and I need to buy food for my kid." Sarah turned. The man was maybe 40, white, wearing a wrinkled dress shirt and slacks like he'd come from an office. He looked tired in the way Sarah recognized. Not one bad day, but many bad days compounding. His car was a silver sedan newer than hers, and through the window she could see a child's car seat in the back, empty. "My daughter's at home with her mom," he said, following her gaze. "I was supposed to pick up dinner, but the card." He stopped, rubbing his face. "I don't usually do this. Ask strangers. But the store closes in 10 minutes and I don't have cash and..." Sarah looked at her phone. 5:73. She looked at the man. She thought about Emma, about what it felt like to be 6 years old and hungry and waiting for a parent to come home with food. "How much do you need?" $5 would cover it. "Just bread and peanut butter. I can pay you back. I just need to get home and grab my other card." Sarah opened her wallet. One $5 bill, worn soft from folding and unfolding. She held it out. "You don't have to pay me back. Just take it." The man stared at the bill. "Are you sure I can really pay you back?" "I'm sure." "Go feed your kid." He took the money, his hand shaking slightly. "Thank you. I mean it." "It's okay," Sarah said, needing to leave before she could second-guess this. "I have to go. Good luck." She got in her car. She had 73 cents and a quarter tank of gas, and somehow she would make it work, because she always did. That was the deal. You figured it out. The man knocked on her window before she could pull out. She lowered it. "I didn't get your name," he said. "Sarah." "I'm James Morrison." "Thank you, Sarah." She nodded, smiled, and drove to the hospital. Emma texted at 11:23 p.m. "Mama, when are you coming home?" Sarah replied while walking through the loading dock entrance, "Tomorrow morning, baby. Sleep well. I love you. Love you, Mama." Sarah put her phone in her locker, changed into her cleaning uniform, and started her shift. 7 hours of mopping floors, emptying trash, disinfecting surfaces. She thought about James Morrison and his daughter and the $5. She thought about Emma and the 73 cents. She thought about Friday morning, 54 hours away. She didn't think about what had just been set in motion. You never do. The moments that matter most disguise themselves as ordinary transactions, small kindnesses, decisions made in parking lots under fluorescent lights. Sarah mopped the pediatric wing. She ate rice from a container she'd brought because rice was cheap and didn't require explanation. At 6:47 a.m., she clocked out, drove home, found Emma already awake, dressed by Mrs. Kim, ready for school. Mama, why didn't we have chicken yesterday? Emma asked, while Sarah made her a peanut butter sandwich. I wasn't hungry for chicken, Sarah lied. Can we have chicken tonight? Maybe, Sarah said, which was another kind of lie, the kind that meant, I'm not sure how yet, but I'll figure it out. She walked Emma to the bus stop, went home, slept 4 hours on the sofa because her mattress had a broken spring. She woke at 1003 p.m., worked her second job cleaning offices downtown from 3 to 7 p.m., came home, made rice and eggs, helped Emma with homework, put her to bed, slept 4 more hours before starting again. She didn't check her bank account. No point. She knew the number. 73 cents until Friday. On Thursday night, her shift supervisor Gloria stopped her in the hallway at 2003 a.m. Sarah, you doing okay? Yes. Why? You look tired. Sarah almost laughed. I'm always tired. Gloria nodded. You're a good worker, Sarah. You show up. You do the job right. That matters. Thank you. She didn't know that in less than 24 hours, showing up would become impossible. She didn't know that Friday morning at 9:43 a.m., while she slept on her sofa, 3 men would come to the hospital looking for her. 2 police officers, 1 hospital security. She didn't know that at 10:05 a.m., they would knock loud enough to wake her and Emma, who had stayed home from school because her stomach hurt, which was Emma's way of saying she missed her mother. She didn't know that when she opened the door in pajamas, confused and half asleep, the officers would tell her she was under arrest. She didn't know Emma would scream. She didn't know Mrs. Densher. Kim would have to hold Emma while Sarah was handcuffed and led down 3 flights of stairs into a police car in full view of their building. She didn't know the thing she would remember most was Emma's voice, high and terrified, crying, "Mom, Mom, 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 Mom," while Mrs. Kim held her back. She didn't know any of this on Tuesday night when she gave James Morrison $5, but she was about to learn that kindness, in the wrong context, looks exactly like crime. Sarah had been handcuffed once before, at 22, when immigration officers raided the restaurant where she worked under the table because her visa had expired. She remembered the particular feeling of metal against wrists, the way it made you aware of your body as a thing that could be contained, controlled, taken away. She had avoided that feeling for 6 years. Now it was back. There's been a mistake, she said in the back of the police car. I don't understand. What did I do? The officer driving didn't turn around. You'll be processed at the county. Someone will explain everything there. But my daughter. Ma'am, someone will explain at the county. Sarah tried to think. She had been careful, always careful. She paid her taxes even though she barely made enough to survive. She had her green card. She had done everything right. Everything is legal. What had she missed? County jail was exactly as terrible as she'd imagined. She was processed, fingerprinted, photographed, given an orange jumpsuit that smelled like industrial detergent and previous occupants' sweat. She was told she had rights. Remain silent, attorney, phone call. She used her call to call Mrs. Kim. Mrs. Kim, I need you to keep Emma. Please. I don't know what's happening. Sarah, she's here. She's crying, but she's safe. What happened? I don't know. They arrested me. Can you keep her until I figure this out? Of course. But Sarah, I have to go. Thank you. Tell her I love her. Tell her Mama's going to fix this. She hung up before Mrs. Kim could ask more questions she didn't have answers to. She was put in a holding cell with 3 other women, 1 sleeping, 1 crying, 1 staring at the wall with the blank expression of someone who had learned emotion was wasted energy. Sarah sat on the metal bench and waited. At 2030 p.m., a guard called her name. Sarah Chen, you're up. She was led to a small room where a woman in a blazer sat across a metal table with a folder. She had dark hair pulled back and the particular exhaustion of too many cases and not enough time. Miss Chen, I'm Detective Maria Santos. I need to ask you about a financial transaction. What transaction? Santos opened the folder. 3 days ago, a check for $50,000 was deposited into your bank account. The check was drawn on the Morrison Family Foundation. It bounced. The foundation reports it as fraudulent. Explain where you got this check. Sarah stared. What? A check for $50,000. Deposited to your Bank of America account ending in 7734. No, I've never had $50,000. I don't know what you're talking about. Santos looked at her with the expression of someone who had heard every denial. Miss Chen, the check has your account information. It was deposited via mobile app using a phone registered to your name. The IP address traces to your apartment complex. I didn't deposit any check. I've never done mobile deposit. I don't know how. You've never used your bank's app to deposit a check? No, I get paid by direct deposit from the hospital and my cleaning job. That's it. Santos made a note. Do you know someone named James Morrison? Sarah felt something click. Yes, I met someone named James Morrison 3 days ago. Santos looked up. Where? At a gas station, Chevron off 8AT. He said his card declined and he needed money to buy food for his kid. I gave him $5. The silence that followed made Sarah understand. She had said something that changed everything. You gave him $5, Santos said slowly. Yes, and this was 3 days ago? Yes, Tuesday night, around 11 p.m. And he told you his name was James Morrison? Yes. Santos leaned back. Ms. Chen, James Morrison is dead. He died 6 months ago. He founded the Morrison Family Foundation, worth approximately $800 million. Sarah felt the room tilt. I don't understand. Neither do I yet, Santos said. But you're being charged with attempted fraud, identity theft, and money laundering. Your bail is $25,000. If you can't post bail, you stay here until your court date. When's my court date? 2 weeks, maybe 3. I can't. I have a daughter. I have to go home. You'll be assigned a public defender Monday morning. Until then, you're here. Santos stood to leave. Wait, Sarah said. I didn't do this. I just gave someone $5. That's all I did. Santos paused at the door. Then you should be worried about who that someone really was. She left. Sarah was taken back to her cell. She asked for another phone call. The guard said no. 1 call per booking. She asked to see her daughter. No visitors until after court appearance. Sarah sat on the metal bench and tried to piece it together. She had given someone $5. That person said his name was James Morrison. 3 days later, someone deposited a check for $50,000 into her account from a foundation belonging to a dead man named James Morrison. None of it made sense, unless the man at the gas station had lied, unless he'd gotten her bank information somehow, unless she was being framed. But why? What did he gain by giving her a fraudulent check and then having her arrested? Sarah put her head in her hands. Emma was at Mrs. Kim's. Emma, who had watched her mother get arrested. Emma, who was 6 years old and didn't understand why Mama couldn't come home. Sarah had given away her last $5 to help a stranger. And now she was in jail for a crime she didn't commit, couldn't understand, and had no way to fight. Detective Maria Santos sat at her desk at 8:03 p.m. on Friday night with the Sarah Chen file. open, and a cold cup of coffee that had been sitting there since 3 p.m. The bullpen was mostly empty. Most detectives went home on Friday nights. Maria had been divorced for 3 years, and her daughter was at college in Portland. Friday nights looked the same as every other night. She pulled up the bank records again. The check had been deposited Wednesday at 11:47 a.m. via mobile app from an IP address that traced to Sarah Chen's apartment building. The check itself was drawn on the Morrison Family Foundation's account at Wells Fargo. The signature was a decent forgery of James Morrison's, the foundation's deceased founder. The foundation had reported it immediately. Their fraud detection system flagged it within hours. The check bounced. Sarah Chen's account was frozen. The bank reported it to law enforcement. Standard procedure. What wasn't standard was Sarah's story. Maria had interviewed maybe 100 fraud suspects. They all had stories. Most were lies wrapped in enough truth to sound plausible. But Sarah Chen's story was either the truth or the most elaborate lie Maria had ever heard. She pulled up the gas station security footage she'd requested that afternoon. The Chevron off 880 kept 7 days of footage. Tuesday night, 10:42 p.m. Camera 3, pumps area. Maria watched Sarah Chen pump exactly $5 of gas, put the nozzle back, and start to get in her car. A man approached her, white, maybe 6 feet, dress shirt and slacks. They talked for approximately 2 minutes. Sarah opened her wallet, gave him what appeared to be a $5 bill. The man took it, said something, and walked away. Sarah got in her car. Maria rewound, zoomed in on the man's face. The footage was grainy but clear enough. She ran it through facial recognition. The results came back at 9:15 p.m. David Morrison, age 42, nephew of James Morrison. Current executor of the Morrison Family Foundation estate. Maria stared at the screen. David Morrison had approached Sarah Chen at a gas station, told her his name was James Morrison, accepted $5 from her, and then, what? Deposited a fraudulent check into her account 3 days later? It made no sense. Unless Maria pulled up David Morrison's file. He was the sole executor of his uncle's foundation, appointed after James Morrison died of a heart attack 6 months ago. The foundation had assets of $847 million. David Morrison had a degree from Stanford, a background in finance, no criminal record. She pulled up the foundation's recent activity, grants to schools, hospitals, community programs. Everything looked normal until she started looking at the internal transactions. There, 3 weeks ago, $250,000 transferred to a consulting firm. Maria looked up the firm. It existed on paper but had no website, no employees listed, no history. 2 weeks ago, $110,000 transferred to another consulting firm. Same thing. Existed on paper only. Last week, $300,000 to a third firm. Maria leaned back in her chair. David Morrison was embezzling from his uncle's foundation, but embezzlement attracted attention, investigations, audits. So he was covering his tracks by creating fake fraud cases. Issue checks to random people, report them as fraud when they bounce, make it look like the foundation was under attack from outside criminals instead of being robbed from within. Sarah Chen was a patsy, a convenient target. He'd probably given her the check himself, slipped it under her windshield wiper or into her bag somehow. She'd never know it was there until the bank flagged the mobile deposit he'd made using her information. But he'd made a mistake. He'd met her in person, and the gas station had security cameras. Maria picked up her phone, called the district attorney's office. It was after 9 p.m., but Karen Liu, the ADA assigned to financial crimes, was probably still there. She always was. Liu, Karen, it's Maria Santos. I need to talk to you about the Sarah Chen case. The Morrison Foundation fraud? What about it? I don't think she did it. Silence. Then, she deposited the check, Maria. We have the bank records. I have security footage of David Morrison, the foundation's executor, meeting with Sarah Chen 3 days before the check was deposited. He approached her. He took money from her. And I have evidence he's been embezzling from the foundation using fake fraud cases as cover. More silence. How solid is the evidence? Solid enough to get a warrant. I need you to hold off on charging Chen until I can build this out. She's already in the county. Bail hearing is Monday. Then get her out Monday. I need more time. I'll see what I can do, Karen said. But Maria, if you're wrong about this, I'm not wrong. Maria hung up and pulled up David Morrison's finances. If he was smart, the embezzled money was in offshore accounts. If he wasn't, it was somewhere she could find it. She worked until 2:30 a.m. By the time she left the station, she had traced $2 million in fraudulent transfers from the Morrison Foundation to shell companies that eventually led to accounts in the Cayman Islands. All of them are controlled by David Morrison. She also had a problem. David Morrison knew the check had bounced. He knew Sarah Chen had been arrested. And if he was smart, he knew the investigation would eventually lead back to him, which meant he was probably planning to leave the country. Maria sent a request to the TSA to flag David Morrison's passport. Then she went home, slept 3 hours, and came back to the station at 7 a.m. Saturday morning to keep building the case. Sarah Chen was still in county jail. Her daughter was still at a neighbor's apartment, and the man who had put her there was still free, but not for long. By Saturday afternoon, Maria had found 3 more victims. 3 other people who had been charged with depositing fraudulent checks from the Morrison Family Foundation in the past 4 months. All the charges had been dropped when the checks were confirmed as forgeries, and the foundation declined to press charges. But the pattern was there. Victim 1, Marcus Webb, a homeless man who had been given a check for $10,000. He tried to cash it at the check cashing place. It bounced. He was arrested, held for 2 days, released when the foundation's lawyers said they didn't want to prosecute. Victim 2, Linda Zhao, a nurse who found a check for $25,000 in her mailbox. She deposited it. It bounced. Same pattern. Arrested, held, released. Victim 3, James Patterson, a college student who received a check for $15,000 as an anonymous scholarship. Deposited it, bounced, arrested, released. All of them had one thing in common. They were vulnerable, homeless, overworked, young, people who wouldn't fight back, people who would take a plea deal to make it go away. And all of them had encountered David Morrison in person before receiving the checks. Maria pulled the reports. Marcus Webb had been outside a coffee shop where David Morrison was a regular. Linda Zhao worked at a hospital where David Morrison had recently been treated for a minor injury. James Patterson attended Stanford, David Morrison's alma mater, and had been at a campus event David attended. David was selecting his targets deliberately, meeting them briefly, getting their information somehow, then framing them. But why Sarah Chen? What made her different? Maria went back to the gas station footage. I watched it again. David Morrison approached Sarah. They talked. She gave him $5. He walked away. 30 seconds later, he walked back, knocked on her window, and talked to her again. Maria zoomed in. David's hand was near Sarah's car when he walked back, right near the driver's side door handle. She picked up her phone, called the county impound lot where Sarah's car had been towed after her arrest. "This is Detective Santos. I need you to check a vehicle for me. Honda Civic, registered to Sarah Chen. I need to know if there's anything unusual on or in the driver's side door." 20 minutes later, the impound officer called back. "There's a small electronic device attached to the inside of the door handle. Looks like a Bluetooth transmitter or something." Maria closed her eyes. "Don't touch it. I'm sending forensics." She hung up and called Karen Lu. "I know how he did it. He planted a device on her car that captured her bank app information when she used her phone. He didn't need her to do anything. He just needed proximity." "Jesus," Karen said, "I need a warrant for David Morrison's arrest, and I need it now." The TSA flagged his passport this morning. He's booked on a flight to Grand Cayman tonight at 11 p.m. "I'll call Judge Reynolds. Give me an hour." Maria spent that hour documenting everything she had: the shell companies, the offshore accounts, the pattern of fake fraud victims, the gas station footage, the device on Sarah's car. By 4:03 p.m., she had an arrest warrant. By 6:40 p.m., she was at San Francisco International Airport with 2 uniformed officers. David Morrison was in the American Airlines lounge, drinking a scotch, waiting for his flight to board. He looked calm, confident, like a man who had already won. Maria walked up to him. "David Morrison?" He looked up, saw the badge, and his face didn't change. "Yes, I'm Detective Maria Santos. You're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and identity theft." She nodded to the uniforms. They moved forward with handcuffs. David set down his drink carefully. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding. We have your shell companies. We have the offshore accounts. We have footage of you planting a device on Sarah Chen's car. We have 3 other victims you framed the same way." Maria leaned in close. "You're done." For the first time, David's expression changed. Not fear, calculation. He was doing math, figuring odds. "I want my lawyer," he said. "You'll get your lawyer. Stand up." They cuffed him, led him out of the lounge. Other travelers stared. David kept his head up, like this was a minor inconvenience, like he'd be out by morning. He wouldn't be. Maria had enough evidence to keep him locked up for years. But Sarah Chen was still in county jail, and until Monday's bail hearing, she'd stay there. Sarah spent the weekend in county jail, trying not to think about Emma and failing completely. Mrs. Kim had visited Saturday afternoon during visiting hours, but Emma hadn't been with her. "Too traumatic," Mrs. Kim said. Emma was asking questions. Mrs. Kim didn't know how to answer. "She thinks you did something wrong." "Mrs. Sign," Kim said quietly through the plexiglass partition. "She's 6. She doesn't understand the legal system. She just knows the police took her mama." Sarah felt something crack in her chest. "Tell her I didn't do anything wrong. Tell her mama's going to come home." "When, Sarah? When are you coming home?" "I don't know. They said Monday. I'll see a public defender." Monday came. The public defender was a man named Robert Chen, no relation, maybe 35, with 3 files under his arm and the exhausted look of someone managing 60 cases simultaneously. "Miss Chen, I've reviewed your case. The evidence against you is substantial. The check was deposited using your phone from your IP address into your account. The prosecution has bank records, technical forensics, everything they need for conviction. But I didn't do it. I believe you. But believing you and proving it are different things. Here's what I recommend. Take the plea deal." Sarah stared at him. "What plea deal?" "The DA is offering plead guilty to attempted fraud, get probation, no jail time. You'd be out today, home with your daughter tonight. But I'd have a criminal record. Yes. I'd be admitting to something I didn't do. Yes. But you'd be free, and your daughter would have her mother back. Sarah felt like she was falling. What if I don't take it? Robert looked at his file. Then we go to trial, which means you stay in jail until trial, which could be 4 to 6 weeks. You'd likely lose your jobs. And if we lose at trial, you're looking at 3 to 5 years in prison. But you said you believe me. I do. But juries believe evidence. And the evidence says you deposited that check. Someone framed me. Maybe, probably. But proving it means finding who did it and why. That takes time and resources I don't have. The best I can do is negotiate a deal that keeps you out of prison. Sarah thought about Emma, about going home tonight, about reading her a bedtime story, making her breakfast tomorrow, walking her to the bus stop, about being her mother instead of a voice on a phone explaining why she couldn't come home. She thought about having a criminal record, about trying to find work with fraud on her background check, about explaining to Emma someday why Mama had pleaded guilty to a crime she didn't commit. How long do I have to decide? The plea deal expires at 5 p.m. today. After that, we prepare for trial. It was 10,030 A. Me. She had 6.5 hours. Robert left. Sarah was taken back to her cell. She sat on the metal bench and tried to imagine both futures. The one where she took the deal and went home guilty. The one where she fought and risked losing everything. At 2:30 p.m., a guard came to her cell. "Chen, you have a visitor. Detective Santos." Maria sat across from Sarah in the small visiting room. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Miss Chen, I need you to listen carefully. I know you didn't deposit that check. I know who did. His name is David Morrison. He's been embezzling from his uncle's foundation and framing people to cover his tracks. You're victim number 4. Sarah felt something unclench in her chest. "You believe me?" "I believe the evidence. I have security footage of him meeting you. I have records of the shell companies he used. I have the device he planted on your car to steal your banking information. I arrested him Saturday night, trying to leave the country. So I'm free?" Maria's expression changed. "Not yet. I still need to build the case. The DA needs more evidence before they'll drop charges. I'm working on it, but I still have to decide about the plea deal by 5 p.m. Yes." Sarah looked at the table between them. "If I take the plea, I go home today. If I fight, I stay here until you prove he did it, which could be weeks." "Yes, my daughter is 6 years old. She doesn't understand why her mother isn't home. She thinks I did something bad." Maria nodded slowly. "I know, and I can't promise you how long this will take. All I can tell you is that I believe you're innocent, and I'm going to prove it. But I need time." Sarah thought about Emma's face when she'd been taken away, about the sound of her crying, about 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks of Emma asking Mrs. Kim when Mama was coming home. "What would you do?" Sarah asked. "If it was your daughter?" Maria was quiet for a long moment. "I'd like to go home. I'd want to take any deal that got me back to her. But I'd also want her to grow up knowing her mother fought for the truth, even when it was hard, even when it cost something." Sarah closed her eyes. The choice was impossible. Both futures broke something. Going home guilty broke her integrity. Staying to fight broke her daughter's trust. There was no version that didn't hurt. At 4:45 p.m., 15 minutes before the plea deal expired, Sarah told her public defender her decision. Sarah refused the plea deal. Robert Chen looked at her like she just jumped off a bridge. Miss Chen, I have to advise you that this is a significant risk. I understand, but I didn't do this. And I'm not going to say I did. Robert nodded slowly. Okay. Then we prepare for trial. Sarah was taken back to her cell. She called Mrs. Kim from the phone bank that evening. I'm not coming home yet, she told her. I'm sorry. I know Emma's asking, but I can't. I can't plead guilty to something I didn't do. Mrs. Kim was quiet. Then Emma asked me today if you were a criminal. I told her no. I told her sometimes good people have bad things happen to them. Was I right, Sarah? Did a bad thing happen to you? Yes, Sarah said. A really bad thing. But I'm going to fight it. How long? I don't know. Weeks, maybe. I'll keep her as long as you need. But Sarah, she needs her mama. Don't stay in there longer than you have to. I won't. I promise. Maria Santos worked 20-hour days for the next 5 days. She traced every transaction. David Morrison had built a timeline of the embezzlement scheme, interviewed the 3 previous victims. She pulled David's phone records and found calls to a tech specialist who sold Bluetooth skimming devices. She got a warrant for David's apartment and found 2 more devices and a spreadsheet tracking his targets. On Thursday, 6 days after Sarah's arrest, Maria walked into the DA's office with a file 3 inches thick. David Morrison has been stealing from the Morrison Foundation for 8 months. He's moved $1.9 million to offshore accounts. He framed 4 people to make it look like outside fraud. Sarah Chen is victim 4, but she's the only one who fought back instead of taking a plea. Here's everything you need to charge Morrison and drop the charges against Chen. Karen Liu reviewed the file for 2 hours. At 4:03 p.m., she called a press conference. At 5:05 p.m., Sarah was released from county jail. All charges dropped. Public apology from the DA's office. David Morrison, facing federal fraud charges, looking at 15 to 20 years. Mrs. Kim and Emma were waiting outside when Sarah walked out. Emma ran to her. Sarah caught her, held her, felt 6 days of separation collapse into one. Moment of contact. Mama, you came back. I told you I would, baby. I told you. They went home. Sarah made Emma's favorite dinner, finally chicken, and helped her with homework and put her to bed and lay down on her sofa with the broken spring and cried for the first time since this started. 2 weeks later, the Morrison Family Foundation's board reached out. They wanted to make this right. They offered Sarah $50,000 as compensation for what she'd been put through. Sarah took it. She paid off her debt, bought a reliable car, took Emma on a real vacation to the beach, and put the rest in a savings account. She kept her hospital job but quit the evening cleaning shift. She wanted to be home with Emma at night. One evening, a month after her release, Emma asked her a question while they were cooking dinner together. Mama, why did you give that man your $5 if we needed it? Sarah stirred the rice, thinking about how to answer. Because he needed help. And when someone needs help, we help them, even when it's hard, even when we can't really afford it. But bad things happened after you helped him. I know, but that's not because I helped him. That's because he was lying about who he was. The help was still the right thing. Emma thought about this. Would you do it again? Sarah looked at her daughter, 6 years old, learning how the world worked, learning what her mother believed in. Yes, Sarah said, I would do it again. Because you don't stop helping people, just because the world is sometimes cruel. You don't stop being kind, Just because kindness can be weaponized, you don't stop being who you are. Just because someone tried to make you into something else. Sarah Chen had given her last $5 to a stranger. 3 days later, police arrested her. 6 days later, she walked free, and she would do it again. Because the alternative was living in a world where the fear of being hurt mattered more than the certainty of being kind. And that was a world Sarah refused to live in.